Meeting to order. We'll stand for a moment of silent prayer. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May be seated. Everybody got a chance to read the numbers?
Do you have copies of the agenda?
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Motion's made to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Minutes accepted as read. Correspondence, I have none. Public comment, period. Wait. Oh, sorry.
Has everybody signed that? Butch.
Everybody
Everybody sign in sheet that got your name on here. Okay. We're down to public comment, and as I read the names on this sheet, if you can stand up and speak, you have 5 minutes, or you don't have to speak, that's up to you. Okay? Mark Smith, is that correct?
Yes, it's me.
Okay.
Just want to here a couple weeks ago for the annex thing, and I didn't mention the number one thing I come in here to talk about because I'm afraid it's going to be like the legal wrangling's a backdoor issue. Being in Smithburg is forced to get a 911 address. I understand the whole thing, but my address is 510 Herbert Avenue, and online and everything, it's an invalid address with a Smithburg zip code. If I key in a West Union zip code, it attaches it. Okay, and it's on GPS. That street going up to my house is Smithbury Street. Everybody knows that it's on GPS, and I have tried to enter 510 Herbert Avenue with the Smithburg zip code. Didn't take. Said it's invalid, and I'll put in 510 just to check 510 Smithbury Street, and it registers as a valid address. So my fear is, because I know how law works in some instances, if things are on the book for a certain amount of time, that it allows backdoor movements to happen, and I'm afraid that if this goes unchecked for a couple of years without any kind of a legislation thing for this annexation, that it's just going to happen automatic because the addresses in Smithburg have been tied to West Union for a certain period of time. I just wanted to make note of that.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Randolph? That's correct? Yes. Yeah. Okay.
I don't feel that we need this annexation. Everybody can their own opinion, but you know, everybody in this room has been faced some time or another with a salesman. And he gets his foot in the door, pretty soon he's in the house. And that's the way I feel about this annexation. West Union can't bring nothing to Smithburg. It's already there. It's been there. And I just feel that it would be wrong for the people to sign anything to annex that West Union with Smithburg.
Thank you, sir. Carry on. Robert Hale.
This is for speaking, correct?
If you're here for MarkWest,
I am here to represent MarkWest.
you can wait for the when When your time comes up for the agenda, if you want to wait.
I'll wait for the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Laura Price, am I reading that right? Okay, thank you. Tammy,
Same two questions.
what?
When are we going to have our assistant, and what's happening with the DCMS, DCAA, whatever is going to happen with it?
I'll let Greg answer that. If you will, if you will.
The administrative assistant, we still have to interview. It's an ongoing process. The DC, EMS, and the ambulance authority, we're going to, I spoke with Mr. Rock, and we're going to get the parties together and work out some proposed actions, and then we'll have a public meeting once we've, I guess you could say, worked the bugs out.
One more question. Is there a written report, or will there be a written report from Mr. Rock?
He's got his recommendations, and it will all be presented at the time that we have this public meeting. Now, whether it occurs during a county commission meeting or a special meeting, we haven't got to that point yet. But it's progressive. Let's put it that way.
Okay, Tammy?
That's it.
Dan, you don't want to speak right now, leave it that way. Arlene?
No.
Dawn and Shannon? Am I reading that right?
Not at this time.
Dale Michaels?
Observing.
Gene Bunny?
Yes. As I said before, I'm against this. I don't think the elderly can stand. We know what's going to happen. They want to tax our land. My land is taxed enough, and the roads, we don't need any protection up there. We have the state troopers, the sheriff's department, and the town cop can back them up. But we don't. West Union has nothing. They don't even have a charter, so they have nothing to give us. If we want to become a city or a little town, then we can get our own mayor and do our own stuff. And like I say, the senior citizens, you've got 75% of your people in Doddridge County that don't work for reasons of health or age or disability, and the other 25% that work. And you know, we get taxed enough, and that's my opinion. I don't think we need the town cop to be running up and down. And besides, like Ward said in the last meeting, it's usually over with by the time the police get there. So, and like Ward also said, we've got our guns to protect us if somebody breaks in our home. So we don't need a town cop. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. I can't read that. I don't know. Does anybody remember who signed this after Gene Bunning? I can't read the name, I'm sorry. Okay, Mike Zorn?
I just had a question about a few meetings back. The attorney came in and asked about tax forgiveness for an oil and gas investment. Was that ever decided, or is it still pending?
Pending.
Okay.
Vicki Hoskinson.
I'm here for two reasons. One is for the annexing of Old Route 50. I don't believe we need it. We don't need no protection up through there. The state police, the sheriffs, is all the time up and down there. The sergeant gasses up over the State Road Lodge every single day between 3:30 and 4. And I see him all the time because I sit by the window and sew and I live right there. And as for protection for the water lines, the guy from the town, 2 or 3 times a day, up and down, shutting off those valves and turning them on, so the water lines being watched for that. And so I don't feel we need it. And the second purpose I'm here for is for the floodplain for MarkWest. I believe if they move that dirt, it's going to build it up and it's going to flood us. We've been flooded 3 different times. That's going to bring the water table up and it's more chance of us getting flooded. And the one in Smithburg, that lady Swisher, Danny Lipscomb, people who lives in the Harley Morehouse, me, and Ronald Nicholson. So I don't think that we should do that because I've seen it every time the water's been up there at Denny House Farm where the MarkWest is. That water flows back and towards where that barn is. If you build that up, there's nowhere for that water to go except up. When that water goes up and it comes downstream, we're the ones going to be getting hit with that high waters. And we've been flooded 3 different times, and I'm telling you, it ain't no fun to get your house flooded. So I'm here for that reason.
Thank you. David Hoskin.
I think my wife said it pretty well.
Okay.
Right there.
Thank you.
Against the annexation and all that, and I don't see any reason for it.
Okay, thank you. One person on here, I can't make out the name, and I don't want to skip nobody, I'm sorry.
Live with me, and I don't have anything to say. I signed the words.
Is that April?
I already need the rest.
You talking about right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just
I
say.
think that's you. Okay, thank you. I'll give that to the clerk. Thank you.
Do you want
Okay.
other people to sign in that came in after the fact? Or?
Who came in? I see Ian. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
That's fine. No problem. Ashley, there's a seat up here if you want to see. Okay. Is anybody else out there? Wants to come in the meeting? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Go through continue with public comment. Linda Ervelina, would you like to speak?
Well, I would say I'm against this. But
Well, wait a minute. Excuse me for 1 minute. You need to stand up
Okay.
so everybody can hear you. If you want to stand in front of everybody, so everybody can hear what you're saying. Okay?
That's okay.
Yeah.
There it is.
Okay. Okay. Diane Pitcock?
No, I'm just waiting to see what's gonna happen.
Okay. Jody?
Herself.
Yes, sir. No comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Suze Cleaver?
I'm not at this time.
Okay. Doug?
Gelhar.
Yes.
I just want to say that yesterday some of us went to the state capitol and we visited our representatives and senators, and we didn't have to go through any metal detector to get in there. And I don't understand why I have to go through a metal detector to get in here.
Because it's a court.
This is a courthouse and we're protecting everybody in Douglas County that comes through them doors. Anybody comes, any county, you're protected in this building. It's kind of like the law has been passed and not everybody is abided by the law yet, but Douglas County is trying to get ahead of everybody.
It's a state law that you have to have a metal detector to
Well,
carry out.
I'm not so sure it's a state law, but it's coming fast. We've been advised to that months ago. And we're trying to comply.
Can I comment on that?
You can.
It doesn't protect anybody.
Oh,
There's no protection there.
oh, okay.
None. If somebody, again, I said a couple weeks ago, the only person to protect you is your individual self. If somebody wanted to do anybody in this building harm, those two gentlemen or whatever out there, and that machine is not stopping anybody. That's going to be settled before anybody gets to where they're wanting to go to. Stuff like that protects nobody. All it does is hinders the progress of the majority of the people, and that's good people that have no intention of hurting anybody. It's there for the 1/1000th of 1% that would do harm to somebody.
Excuse me. We have to remember that this courthouse had a person in it with a gun who cornered a judge, who was in and out each of the offices with the gun. Our elected officials only have one way out of their offices. And if this stops a gun from coming in here, then more power to them.
It won't. If that person wanted to do harm, these two guys out here thinking they can stop something, or the first one's down. That's my point. That's not going to stop them.
Okay.
Well, the fact of the matter is the Supreme Court has mandated through the court improvement committees that metal detectors be in every courthouse to protect for circuit court, family court, and magistrate court, as well as for the rest of the business dealings of a courthouse. So this is something that is required by the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals.
Thank you very much. Wayne Woods?
No comments at this time, sir.
Chris Woods. Thank you. Okay. Here we go, Greg. Thank you. All right, we'll move to new business.
Excuse me. I've got something, Ed. I wanted to ask, did you get the copy of the petition where the people of the community signed the petition against the annexing of Route 50?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I forgot to add that when I said that.
Yeah, we have. Okay, going to new business. A, Community Corrections Grant, Kevin Means. We spoke with Kevin earlier, and we're waiting on another county possibly to come on board with Doddridge for their community corrections. And I will move that we table this until we have a special meeting to vote on this grant. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Ayes have it. Motion tabled. Item B, mapping and addressing, Ashley Webb. Come on in.
explanation.
Good, how are you? I just have the one, the Board of Education, had contacted me, showing if they're still wanting the name, where they're putting the maintenance building and the bus garage, and they suggested to me after putting up cycles, the rates are coming in. I'm putting them private road off County Route 50 over 42 Bull Drive to the first road on the right to be on Janice and Michael's Drive. We can't do
Could everybody?
No.
A private road off County Route 50 over 42, Bulldog Drive to the first road on the right to be named Janice M. Michaels Drive.
This is the first reading?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Item C, industrial appraisal update. We spoke about that earlier. There's some question, do we need to do this? So the clerk will make some phone calls to our insurance company and get some answers to this, and I'll move we table this until our next meeting. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Nay. Ayes have it. Motion is tabled. Okay, we'll move West Union annexation. I'm moving that up to item D for now. Okay, West Union Town annexation. I move that we deny the annexation. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We're not granting the annexation to the town of West Union. Annexation is not in the best interest of the county at this time. Public meeting of floodplain permit number 13-103, Sherwood facility. We'll let people speak. We'll keep it in an orderly fashion, and I'll give everybody 5 minutes. This is not a hearing. This is just a public meeting to inform people what's happening down there, and this is no hearing whatsoever. Okay, so we can start with the gentleman from MarkWest. Where'd he go? We'll let you speak up first, okay? Is that microphone working?
Yes.
It is? Which you can use that if you want. You go ahead. Go ahead.
Turn that on.
Switch on.
Push the bottom of it. At the bottom.
My voice carries, I'm used to being loud.
Okay.
He speaks loud enough.
I'm loud enough on my own, right? All right, I'll try to project. Well, I see some folks from the open house we had the other night. So hopefully we addressed some concerns a few nights ago. If not, then I'll try to give a brief explanation here now. And I guess by way of introduction, I should say my name is Robert McNeil. I'm the manager of regulatory and governmental and regulatory affairs for MarkWest. By way of full disclosure, I have an environmental background, 15 years of environmental work. Maybe it's more now. I'm a licensed professional geologist, and I've been with MarkWest for 5 years now. I should also say that the open house we did a few nights ago was what I hope to be the first of many. We'd like to create a more open dialogue between us and the community so that we don't have unanswered questions or unfounded fears or anything like that. The floodplain application that is being considered currently is for temporary storage of stockpiles of soil. Those stockpiles of soil will facilitate the construction of plants number 4 and 5. Plants 1 through 3 are currently operational. Plants 4 and 5 will be just like plants 1 through 3, which is 200 million a day. That's standard cubic feet of cryogenic processing. And by that I mean simply we strip off the methane and put it into the pipeline to be sold for home heating and what have you, power generation, and the remaining natural gas liquids are then transported for further separation of other MarkWest facilities. Obviously, construction of plants 4 and 5 are critical to the development of the infrastructure here in Doddridge. Quite bluntly put, without gas processing, the gas in Doddridge County is unusable. There are too many rich hydrocarbons in there, ethane, propane, butane, pentane, etc., that make the gas not suitable for use in home heating and power generation. So without our construction, without our plant, be very direct, this clay doesn't work and people's wells don't get drilled, gas doesn't get developed. That's the plain and simple fact. To speak directly to the floodplain, I know a lot of people are here. I met some of you, I had the opportunity to meet some of you the other night. I know a lot of people have concerns. And I take the opinion that trust is earned, it's not given. So I will say that we paid a licensed, West Virginia licensed professional engineer to run the analysis for us. It's called Hydraulics and Hydrology, or H&H for short. The engineer we paid is very reputable. We cut no corners. And the thing that I hope everybody takes away from this meeting, I'm a licensed professional. Okay, my stamp, my seal is my livelihood. What that also means is if it came to a lawsuit, if I had stamped something with my seal, my personal assets, my house, my car, my everything can be attached to that lawsuit. So I assure you, a licensed professional engineer will not put his or her seal on a document that is not 100% accurate. The analysis that was run showed that the temporary soil stockpiles with the new bridge that's put in, I don't know if anybody notices, but the original bridge that was there is gone. We put in a new bridge. That bridge actually has a higher clearance over the stream. So with the new bridge and the soil stockpiles, we actually show that, and I'm going to get my numbers right so I don't give you the wrong thing the first time. We actually show that for the 100-year event, which is what FEMA requires, that the new elevation is predicted to be 0.27 feet, so a quarter of a foot, 3 inches, less than it would have been if MarkWest had not constructed on that site and the old bridge was left in place. So when people say, when it floods, it backs up to Denny Powell's barn, I don't refute that a bit. But what we have shown through accurate survey and modeling is that the primary driver for that backup is not the storage of soil anywhere on that facility. It was really driven by the old bridge. And I am sure I will get some disbelief in that. And you know what? Like I said, Earned, not given. That's fine. Don't believe me. Believe a professional engineer who's willing to put his livelihood and his personal assets on the line to attest to that fact. Now, I understand that the county has taken a further step of asking an independent third-party engineer to review that. And I am supremely confident that that third party will concur with the engineer that we paid. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are you up for any questions?
You know what? I'm always up for questions. But I thought I had 5 minutes, so I'd go sit down and give somebody else a chance.
I gave you a little extra time because I started a little bit earlier before you did.
Oh, all right. The shot clock hasn't run out yet?
If you're up to some questions, I'll open it up for questions. Where's Dan at? Is that okay for you, Dan?
Yes, it is.
Okay. If you're up for questions,
I'm up for any
we'll
questions.
open it up. We'll open it up for questions. If anybody wants to ask a question.
What's the name of the company that did the H&H?
Civil and Environmental Consultants.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
You said engineers would stake their license on
I did.
what you're saying.
I did.
My son is not an engineer, but his aptitude is very high. And 5 engineers and my son took the same test. My son outscored all the engineers that were licensed, and he is not licensed. He works in the oil, gas, and oil field. But that just goes to show you, sometimes license is not everything. It's up here.
Oh, I agree with you completely.
So,
I agree.
but yeah, when you're putting your license on, you're putting your food in.
Believe me, I think about that every time I'm required to seal a document with my professional geologist license.
What is the total acreage or the footprint of the mounds of soil that are going to be placed in the floodplain?
I would have to get you that number. I don't know that detail off the top of my head.
What about the tonnage or the cubic yards of soil?
That's to be stored temporarily for this application.
Yeah.
That is all in the application.
Okay, the other question, how is temporary defined? What is the definition of temporary time-wise?
Chronologically speaking, I would say reasonable people can come to differing definitions.
I'm asking what MarkWest's plan is as far as what temporary is, not reasonable people. I know my idea of temporary is going to be different from yours, so I would like to know what MarkWest's definition of temporary is.
Less than 1 year.
Less than 1 year?
Less than 1 year.
Months?
Less than 1 year.
Okay, so it has the potential, that temporary has the potential of putting us through the whole flood season. Because if it's temporary, there's not going to be time for seeding, etc. So you've got more of an erosion issue going on.
We have E&S controls. We have a state-issued E&S permit. E&S is erosion and sedimentation control. Yes. You can go down to the site. You can see the sign that says Construction Stormwater NPDES permit, like number, umpty scratch, whatever that may be.
Well, actually, there's a no trespassing sign right by where you can enter rails to trails there. So unless I'm invited or cleared, I can't really go in to really
Well, I'll
see
tell you
that.
what. I'll give you a personal tour.
Okay.
How about anybody that would like to see the footprint of the plan, a personal tour, a group tour?
A group tour, they're harder to manage, but we certainly do group tours.
Anybody interested in seeing? Like, on that tour?
I take it we're talking about those mounds of dirt over there by the plant. I'm not opposed to that plant whatsoever. I mean, it's a good thing. You mentioned the gas. You were specifically talking about the deep gas because there's a gazillion wells in Doddridge County that need a lot of homes.
Yes.
And that gas is just fine. Has anybody looked into moving that dirt to locations that aren't in a floodplain that would build up, let's say, commercial property, like right out here at the corner of the 4-lane across from the football stadium? I mentioned 2 weeks ago during that annex meeting that that land was for sale, and if somebody had bought it and bulldozed that hill down into that valley, they could have created some prime real estate right there. Is there any chance of negotiating with the company that could get rid of that dirt and put in a hole like that? Because that's not in the floodplain, it's dead property.
Well,
you could
regardless of
where and build some really good real estate for the town of West Union to bring a Sheets or somebody in there to generate a ton of revenue, and right across the 4-lane by the Hillendale, between the 4-lane and Hillendale, you've got that whole little patch of land right there that could take just about every bit of that dirt, and again, make a really nice piece of real estate to develop in there for revenue for the town of West Union.
I'll tell you this, we have looked at a myriad of alternatives for this. And every alternative we consider has consequences. For example, when you talk about placing fill in a valley, most valleys around here have streams in the bottom of them. And so if you're filling a stream, then you need an Army Corps permit.
Right.
Regardless of where we put the fill in this county, we're required to submit for a floodplain permit, so we'd be having this very same discussion. We have unknown issues of archaeological concerns. First step in any of our decision-making process is always to pay a registered archaeologist to investigate those concerns for us. Then the next concern would be wetlands and streams, of course. And so every iteration we go through has consequence to it. For example, if we were to haul the dirt over the road, and then we'd be putting that many trucks on the road on a perpetual basis.
Right.
Well, for the duration, right? I misspoke, but it's a big endeavor to move a lot of dirt over open road. I think the most suitable storage for that soil is right there on site. And certainly I hear what you're saying about economic development, and to the extent that we can be helpful in being a catalyst for some of those developments, we'd absolutely love to be a part of that.
Well, I'm just trying to, it's an alternative thing. It would, well, number one, those two pieces I just mentioned, there aren't any streams there, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
You know, I've seen this area. I've seen the floods that occur around here. I'm not in a floodplain, so it doesn't bother me that much. It bothers me to see friends and people I know that they have to suffer through it. And I know what it's like. I've got rental property that I've had to come in and clean up in floodplains, and it's not fun.
No, I know.
And it can come up real fast, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm not directly involved, affected by it, but I stand behind the people that are, and I see it as a major concern. And moving one, you know, they leveled that one, they're leveling it off and building mounds all over the place, and so I'm on the side of the people that are living in floodplains. I think it's a mistake. I just don't see how any people sitting out of town on a calculator doing some math that can calculate that and make that determination.
Well, that's actually what FEMA does.
Yeah.
Okay, so when they determine the flood elevation and the flood plains, they're doing the exact same thing that the engineer we pay to do is doing. Okay. Now, I'll tell you that anybody that lived through Ivan, I was literally thigh-high in floodwater during Ivan, trying to salvage what I could from my in-laws' house. And so I can tell you, it is no fun. Ivan was a flat 500-year event.
Right.
What we modeled, as required by FEMA, what FEMA does is a 100-year event. Now, it's no secret, I'm not from Doddridge County, you all know that, I know that. But I'm told that the 100-year event was in, what, the 80s?
If you're saying 1985, then although we have been experiencing more severe flooding locally in the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, just last year alone, I live off of a road called Big Flint. We had 4 major flood events on Big Flint. And part of that has been due to some of the sedimentation that's ending up in our streams, and partially some of it's due to the erosion that's occurring from the oil and gas activity that's happening in this region. And in this region also, we have localized flooding. We have localized microbursts that can be, it happens real fast, and they might go down real fast, but there's still damage, the potential of damage to people's homes.
I agree with you.
So the 100-year flood, I think FEMA probably needs to reevaluate as far as that's concerned. Just
Right,
thought I'd
and
clarify
we
for
can
you.
all agree that that's an
That's-
issue, not
yeah,
for
it's
this.
not-
Do they have a plus minus figure in there? Because we've got a lot of snow on the ground and we've got rain coming and it's got flood written all over it. With these warm temperatures, if
Friday.
Thursday there's rain, I don't
Thursday,
know how
Friday,
it's going to
yeah,
be.
it's going to get up in the 50s.
All right.
Yeah.
Don't run off, stick around for it. You might give an idea of what it's like living around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you that the numbers we show indicate that the cause for backup was the old bridge and not the stockpiles of soil. The old bridge is gone, the new bridge is there, there's a lot more clearance under that bridge. Allow that stream to free flow. And for the record, we show 0.0 feet of backup or of increased elevation off of the Powell property.
Say that again, please.
The H&H analysis shows that the increased water surface elevation as a result of our activity off of the Powell property is 0.0 feet.
0.0.
No, what it was before. What's the next number?
0.
0.00000.
Here, nothing, you say nothing.
Yeah.
However, in the floodplain permit application, the December 2013 permit application, the change in elevation that the company stated was 0.28 feet, which is what
On the Powell property with the old bridge. You're absolutely right. Take away the old bridge.
Right, but those are the calculations
I
they
agree
used
with
in
you.
the
I know.
floodplain permit application, so it would seem to me it's a moot point because the permit application that was submitted does not have the correct data in it. You were just saying 0, but yet what they submitted was saying that the change in elevation was going to be 0.28.
He's saying, Mariana, that on the Powell property, it will increase 0.28, but once you get off of the Powell property, there will be no impact to anybody.
Well, the
That's
issue
what
I
he's
have
saying.
also is the fact that the permit application states that none of the adjacent property owners were notified. Now, what's interesting to note, adjacent to the Powell property is the rails to trails. Upstream from this plant, approximately a half a mile, there is a dwelling with people living in it. Downstream, there are adjacent properties, but no one was notified of this permit being applied for. And also, in our floodplain ordinance specifically states that adjacent property owners be notified. And there was no notification done.
If it is shown by their studies that they will be.
Well, I thought one of the whole reasons we went over the floodplain ordinance and redid the whole thing was to provide for adjacent property owner notification.
If they are going to be impacted.
But who, I mean,
And we
what
would
if
be.
people agree with me?
Please, they do up here.
They're saying you won't be.
It will impact us because the rails to trails is right across the creek from us and it's like a big firewall.
The other,
When that water comes up, it has nowhere to come but to us.
correct, and the other thing that was done, a part of the field that used to be drainage has now been paved. the access road to the plant, that road was paved. It used to be gravel, so that provided for more drainage. The other thing that has occurred with the removal of that mound and the soil and the vegetation, all of the vegetation's gone, which used to suck up more of the water. And then the other issue that's occurred is real close, and I believe it's on the Powell property, there was a wetlands area that was identified. Now, I know that MarkWest has come to some agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers or whatever for the wetlands remediation thing, and you're planning on doing that on the Moose property. But right now, that area that is impacted, part of the drainage, the soil drainage has been covered over, and that includes the road as well as the rails to trails. A wetlands area is being filled in and destroyed. The footprint of, and I looked at the permit that you guys had, and I'm estimating that you're probably looking at maybe 13 or 14 acres possibly of the soil footprint with the temporary piles of soils in them. And part of that stuff, if you look at where they're located, and I can show you, if you look at it on a topographic map, the plant, the current plant sits in here. Here, so you can all see, I'll pass this around. The current plant, 1, 2, and 3, sits in this region, correct? Okay, the December 2013 permit application is stating that the location of the mounds of soil, the temporary placement of mounds of soil, are going to be here, 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 and I believe here. Not all of this is in the floodplain. This whole region around here is in the floodway, or
It is not in the floodplain.
okay. I looked at the FEMA flood tool, and well, perhaps they call it risk. That this whole region right here, that hatched region, they're calling that as the risk area, and you're placing the soil in here.
Risk, perhaps, but not floodplain.
Well, that's still where the water's going to go. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't even live close to that area, but I have concerns.
But your argument is flawed because we're not putting impervious cover there. We can all agree we're putting soil stockpile with the same hydraulic conductivity as what came out of there before. Right?
I have a question.
I mean, the K value doesn't change.
Bare soil versus vegetative cover is not different when it comes to erosion and
You're talking about runoff
water
coefficient,
settling
not permeability. There's a big difference.
Will there be
If you come right off of it, the water's not going to soak in. You need
Like
to
it
leave
would.
it.
I think there's a lot of variables here that weren't in FEMA's
Weren't
calculations,
included,
is what I think. And
I have a question. Will there be any discharges of soil into Buckeye Creek?
No, it's not permissible.
Or do you have a compensatory mitigation plan with the DEP? I have a paper here that you'll be discharging, you're going to be paying the DEP $1,186,757 for the discharge of fill material into open water. It would result in 2.838 acres of debits.
That's different. That's different altogether. What you're talking about there is a Corps authorized permit to place fill in waters of the United States. That's not the same as an unregulated discharge of sediment.
Yeah, it's a regulated discharge. It's a regulated
It's not a discharge. It is a placement. There is a huge material difference.
Where are you placing that soil?
Everything that is in the Corps permit is actually available for your review. In fact, if you wanted to look at it, you have it. There you go. I know several people.
But was this taken into consideration when you did this hydraulic study that you were going to be filling in 6.55 acres of emergent wetlands and filling in the stream? Was that considered when you did the engineering hydraulic study?
Give me a minute. I want to give you the
That's
right
gonna
answer.
change that landscape.
What's that?
When you no longer have a wetland, that's a big deal as far as sucking up water. When you're filling
No,
in
no,
streams.
it is not a big deal for sucking up water, because what you just implied is evapotranspiration.
It
okay?
helps when it floods.
Now, let me get this out, because this is important. This is an important point. Evapotranspiration is entirely different than what is represented in a wetland. A wetland, by its very definition, is inundated, saturated conditions. That means steady state flow, no more, no less, right? Evapotranspiration, what you're talking about sucking up, is the act of vegetation taking that water into its, and dispersing it through its leaves, right? So,
I'm saying, is
the
it going to
evapotranspiration,
affect
this is an important point.
No, you're going off subject. I'm asking you, was that included when you talked to the people to do the study? Did you say, we're going to fill in the wetlands and we're going to fill in these streams? Because
Let me
that's
say
going to
this.
make it different there. The landform is different.
The action referenced in the core permit is not yet approved. What we are required by ordinance to submit is the pre-existing conditions and the proposed post conditions. Okay? And the post conditions aren't required to contemplate every cascade of events in the future.
May I ask just one question?
Yes.
Is MarkWest aware that the streams in Doddridge County cannot be cleaned or redredged due to the mussels that are in this area?
Some streams are listed as mussel streams. You're absolutely right. And for every action that involves a federally listed species, including the mussels, and I think down here we have the sheep nose and the heel splitter are the two that I believe are most prevalent. They're in Talkington Fork, they're in Buckeye Creek,
Middle Island Creek.
and Middle Island Creek. Basically, the larger contributory drainages for the Middle Island drainage. Okay? And every time that we need to put pipe through one of those streams, we have to get a registered molocologist out to survey that. So yes, I am keenly aware of the mussels.
But the whole point here is our streams, 1950, this county was just devastated by flooding. Smithburg lost, I think, what, 6? Does anybody know the history? There was a whole one whole family.
About 6, it was, the water was near the top of the telephone pole.
Okay? They came through after, and the creeks were cleaned out. Our creeks now are getting full of sediment again. That in itself is going to cause us to have more
And it's
flooding.
going to continue to get filled full of sediment, which when you're discharging this much soil, they have,
No, that is a
an
misnomer.
application to discharge this much soil
I'm
into the
simply
stream.
not going to let that misnomer stand. I'm not.
Okay.
What we're talking about is not an unregulated deposition of sediment caused by...
It's a regulated discharge of soil into the
It's still in
stream.
there,
It's still in there.
whether it's regulated.
I mean,
Whether
you're
it's
talking about
regulated
two
or not.
different permits.
Okay. Calm down, one at a time. I understand where you're coming from, everybody. One at a time, keep it orderly, everybody will be happy.
Okay, the Army Corps of Engineers, the permit that MarkWest applied for, all of this, anything that happens with all of these permits, excuse me, it has to be looked at as a whole, because it's that property that's being affected. The Army Corps of Engineers, I mean, when is the comment period for that, and how are people notified? You know, there's no notification of that.
There is notification. The notification was made in the exponent. The notification was made in, oh yes it was.
No, I'm not saying that it was.
It most certainly was, and it was also posted on the Army Corps' website.
A lot of people don't get the extra.
What is the living
It's not our
newspaper
local
here?
paper.
Yeah, that's not a local paper, so that would do us.
And that was
Well, that
posted
hurts Darlene's feelings now.
on
That's
December
just not nice.
26th? It was. It was posted on December 26th in the Clarksburg Exponent. And, you know, if people aren't aware that stuff like this is going on and there is a comment period, you have the public has no time to comment. Most people that are sitting here, I mean, there's one thing that I would like to say. The whole intent of our floodplain ordinance is to promote the general health, welfare, and safety of the residents and the real property owners of the county and persons who may be affected by flooding. The other thing it states in the ordinance is the intent is to minimize danger to public health and safety by protecting the water supply. Okay? All of this, the discharge or whatever, however you want to argue, however you want to state or whatever, all of this is also upstream from the municipal supply for the town of West Union. Okay? So the potential of the erosion and the sedimentation in the creek during a flood event, all of that stuff's going to go through the intake for the West Union water supply, which puts even more of a burden on that water plant. I mean, that's just another thing that people need to factor in.
You know what? I completely support what you just said.
Thank you.
And to that end, we went to great lengths to select qualified, licensed individuals to demonstrate mathematically, beyond hyperbole, that we are not going to raise the floodplain elevation.
Okay, I have another question. You got to look at the cumulative thing. You also applied for a floodplain permit in January of 2014. January of 2014, the elevation, I believe, the rise was going to be 0.75 feet, which is 9 inches. When you total up those two different things, it comes out to, I believe, over a foot. Because I believe the ordinance in FEMA states you've got to look at the cumulative total and can't be more than a foot. So far, you have a floodplain permit that was issued in July or August of 2013. There was something that was done in summer, I believe, of 2012. Then we have the one that was applied for in December of 2013, and then the one for January. The one for January, you got to look at it all. When I added all those numbers that I took from the permit applications, I was getting well over a foot. So, I mean, you got to look at the whole picture. You can't just go one at a time. You got to look at the whole picture.
What you're not doing is running an H&H analysis. You're adding static numbers, right? You're not, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, correct me if I am. But what you're referencing is increased elevation on the subject property, not on the adjacents.
Well, they didn't do anything on the, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't even matter if it's the subject property. What happens on the Denny Powell property affects everyone upstream and downstream. Water is not going to just sit in that little vacuum and not move on or back up. You know,
actually,
Mr.
there's
Powell,
something called headwater conditions and tailwater conditions for a backup. And there are obviously different elevations depending on those, right?
yes, there are. And you know, the FEMA website or the West Virginia Flood Tool shows those elevations. And it shows how they decrease as you're going downstream. And it shows your permit applications in the study shows where they did stop. But any way you look at it, the numbers that they're giving, that CEC gave, are above 1 foot. When you look at it all cumulatively, it's above 1 foot. Our ordinance specifically states, and actually in one of the applications, there's actually a letter from one of the engineers, the project manager for CEC, that in there, he states in that cover letter that they have to be aware and conscious of the fact that they can't go over the one foot level. So, you know, maybe, I mean, I thought I could read.
Absolutely.
So the project engineer admits this, you know, is admitting that as the project goes forth, they've got to keep this in place. And I have a copy of that letter here in my pile of papers, because I thought it was interesting to note that they were aware. You know, so
That they're aware of what? The
that
ordinance?
they have to be conscious of the fact that it's a 1 foot limit. The other part that I find interesting is, I think the whole thing of temporary placement, and I realize fill might fall under a different thing, the temporary placement in a floodplain area or field has to be something that can be moved off. Has to be on wheels or can be hauled off. I can't see how 131,000 cubic yards of fill can be moved off quickly. And 131,000 cubic yards of fill is also something that was listed in the permit application. Okay? Because it, gave the figures and how many, the erosion control blankets, the compost filter stops and everything. So, temporary placement is something that can be wheeled off. That's why trailer parks or, like some of this stuff, it's okay. But if you got tons and tons and tons of soil, I'd be hard pressed you could get dump trucks in there quick enough to move it off.
You have no place to take it to.
Yeah.
Dan, did you have a question?
Well, I had a comment there. I can't speak for CEC's engineers. And I'll hear, but I believe when Mariana's quote where they said 9 inches, that they are taking into consideration all of those changes, the .27, before that.
Not the way they listed it.
But at any rate, I also want to point out that the meeting tonight is for discussion of permit number 103, which deals with the 2 additional stockpiles, temporary stockpiles of earth. It is not for the master plan, which has been submitted later, which we will address in the future once we get this issue of the temporary stockpiles taken care of. So tonight's meeting is about the permit for 2 additional temporary stockpiles of earth to be permitted.
Anybody else have any more
I
questions?
have a question.
Yes.
When your engineers was doing that, planning all that, did they come on downstream, measuring where the water level would be when they built that up through there for the homes along the middle island?
I will confess, I don't know where all they took their survey points, but I know that we did, the original application was submitted using the DEM data, digital elevation model data, that the state of West Virginia publishes. We have since gone through and refined the elevations using hard shots. So I would have to go back and check to know exactly where their shots were. I'll give you an honest answer.
Because even building up a foot makes a difference down through our area, because like I said, when the water rises, with that rail trail wall back there, it can't go that way. There's only way for one way to come, and that's right in our yard in our house. So any building up, any of them will bring the water up, and the water, when you get a lot of rain.
Well, respectfully, what I'll tell you is that the H&H analysis shows that off of the Powell property, there will not be any increased water surface elevation in a 100-year event.
I'd like to back up a minute. I'm unfamiliar with the bridge you talked about taking out and rebuilding.
Sure.
Okay, been around here a long time and all. That seems like the earth that was in place there that you removed, that you claim that caused a lot of backup and into the floodplain and everything. I can't get it together in my head that a single bridge around here that had enough cubic yards of earth around it to displace as much earth that's been piled up over here in this bottom. I'm having a hard time visualizing that.
It's actually, think about it this way, it's not necessarily the soil around it in any way, but when you have a bridge, and let's say you make it out of steel beams,
right?
And instead of using a 12-foot tall I-beam,
right,
or H-beam, however you like to call it, you use a 16-inch tall or a 24-inch tall.
Right.
Okay. So it projects down from the bottom of the deck,
right,
closer to the water surface elevation. So now what you've got is in effect a hanging dam. Okay. So now take that up, shorten it up,
okay, I'm with you,
create more void space above it, and you allow that stream to flow. I mean, think about it this way. I got into this situation. We took over somebody else had constructed a stream crossing in Pennsylvania, and they laid two 24-inch sticks of corrugated pipe, boom, boom, right next to each other, okay? And there is no way that those two 24s could carry even the 10-year event because they didn't have enough airspace, right? So I don't care if you take a dozen of those little pipes and stick them across, they're not going to transport what I was able to do by yanking those two out and putting in a free-span bridge. So it just allows the stream to pass. Now I'll tell you, that happened back in 11, 10. And the upstream neighbor was madder than a hornet because those little pipes were causing backup on his property. Didn't flood his house, but made his yard wet. Madder than a hornet. We went in there, pulled those little pipes out, paid the same engineer to design the bridge, get us that crossing, put a free-span bridge in there, and the guys never had another problem. And I tell you, it has rained just as heavy, if not heavier, in the time since we put it in.
You know, that was very localized, but I still can't get it in my head that little improvement is going to offset these massive mounds of dirt setting in what used to be a floodplain, where the water has no place else to go but downstream. And
well, the important thing is to pull the backup out first. That's the first step. I mean, it's like triage, right? If you're bleeding, figure out how to stop the bleeding.
Yeah, I understand that part of it, but you've done a little bit here to help.
Sure. But
then you've offset that with these big mounds of dirt in a floodplain. I just don't see how it's.
It may seem counterintuitive, and just for everybody's benefit, not only is the two individuals who prepared this application licensed, but they just went through the training. They just, let me say this, they just retook the training less than a year ago to make sure that their analysis was the correct way of doing it. So it's like in my cousin Vinny, you know, when they calibrated the torque wrench and all that stuff. I mean, these two individuals just went through the training. So, I mean, like I said, it may seem counterintuitive, but that is, we have followed every procedure we've been asked to follow.
Well, I know FEMA is more interested in protecting slugs than human beings.
I don't really think it does seem counterintuitive, but I think really the benefit that you gain from when the bridge is hanging down this far to if it's up here, sure that's better. But you don't get that benefit when the water is down at this level, at this level, at this level. You still don't have any benefit until you get up to this level.
Sure.
So what about water until that level?
Well, it's still within confines of the banks. Before,
but it's right up
the
to
bank
the bottom
full
of the
bank full elevation was impeded in the 100-year event by the structure. But now the bank full elevation is allowed to pass.
Right, but there can still be flooding, and it's not up to this 100-year flooding, but it's all of this is still the same. It's just that last foot.
Right.
So
I agree. And what I'm saying is, at a 100-year event, which is a significant flood event, the H&H analysis demonstrates that there is no backup off the subject property.
Is there a plan in place, and I mean no offense by this, that when Mother Nature approves all of the company workforce engineers all wrong, and flooding occurs, is there a plan in place to come in and help the people of Doddridge County clean up?
Quite honestly, no. There is not a plan in place because that's not the kind of contingency that you would expect to.
The unexpected,
I know, I've gone through, you know what, I hear what you're saying, I really do. And I've had similar discussions in other areas. But I answered you on this, and no, there is not some sort of plan.
my concern is
Yes.
There is, I don't know if it's before you built the bridge or after, but the water still flooded up to the apparatus or station that's on the right side of the creek. The water was up to there. It's my water.
And also, back to where that water is, like the nectar, like we did. The waters get out, that water can't flow back there like it used to. And the only way it can come out and down. If it comes out and down, it's gonna go high.
And it has,
So you can't say that
You know,
it won't work.
again, I completely hear what you're telling me, and I guess the only thing, and I know it's really not scratching the itch, is it? I mean, for me to say that an engineer who puts his livelihood on the line, who just went through the training, will certify on his house, on his car, that it's not going to create a backup.
Mr. McHale, I
Yes.
think what you also need to realize, the people that are speaking up here are concerned about their homes, their health, their well-being, and their lives, because they are in the path of the potential flooding routine. And whether or not, I mean, you can say each person in here is a certified human being, and they will never make a mistake or whatever. I don't care what kind of credentials the engineers have. They have the training to do the stuff. But if it's a theoretical, and I know they're using all the available technology to do all of the studies, people that live in this county have seen enough weird things happen so quickly as far as waters are concerned that none of the so-called studies really take that into effect.
You know what? I hear what you're saying. If we don't put our faith in licensed professional engineers, none of us should ever get in an automobile again. None of us should ever get in an airplane again. None of us should ever cross a bridge again. Because what I'm talking about is the very same credentials. Yes.
I'd like to know if MarkWest is going, you asked us to put our faith in this. Is MarkWest going to put their faith in this? Are you guys willing to cover these people if they get flooded and their houses wash away? Are you guys going to pick up the bill? Can you put your MarkWest, put their faith in it to say, yeah, we'll cover anything that happens, whether you have insurance or not? Well, is MarkWest willing to do that? You're asking us to do it.
he said no, that they don't have anything
Well,
like that.
exactly.
I don't have a written plan on a binder I can pull out. That's what I'm saying. I don't have a plan.
You
The
trust
question was,
these
do you
engineers,
have a
you want
plan?
us
I
to
don't have
trust
a plan on a binder I can pull out.
But you don't have, like insurance, I mean, MarkWest is not gonna pay if her house gets flooded. They're not gonna pay her anything.
Where are they? You trust the engineers? You trust them? Can you trust them?
I will certainly trust
Well,
the
then,
engineers.
well, why don't
If
they
her
make some
house
kind of
floods
plan?
and she sued the engineers
like
that you've
Yeah.
got, could you sue those engineers to put their house on?
Any one of us, let me put this to rest. Any one of us, it's a good question, any one of us can sue any other one of us in this room for any.
What about a commitment from MarkWest that they will cover this? They want us to put our faith in them, our faith in their judgments. MarkWest should cover it. MarkWest should stand up and say, we'll take care of this stuff.
It's all about being a good neighbor, and,
Yeah.
and I don't see what they've done up to this point to show that, so.
When you talk about we have a right to sue, a right is one
Yeah.
thing, but the ability to sue is
Yeah.
not.
The ability.
When
We
you're
should-
worried about paying a car payment, feeding
Yeah.
your kids,
Yeah.
and heating your house in the winter, who the heck has money to sue somebody like MarkWest?
Why are you asking us to take all of the, like you guys do?
I don't believe we are asking you to do anything
Sure
other
you are,
than...
you're asking
No, no.
everybody to trust.
Let me make this very clear. I am asking everyone in this room to do exactly what is being asked of MarkWest, which is follow the prescriptive floodplain ordinance, and we have done that. You all have the right and ability to petition the commissioners, the floodplain manager, to do your own construction in the floodplain. It's the same process and procedure that we're going through that you would go through. No different.
So you're saying that the
So let me ask you, I'm sorry, let me just finish this thought. So if you wanted to build on your property and it was determined to have the potential to impact the floodplain, you would have to do the very same thing that we are doing right now. And by extension, would you then be willing to stand up and say, you know what, I will indemnify everybody else in the county and hold them harmless if their properties get flooded because I did this?
If I wanted to set, you know, there's a big difference, yeah, there's a big difference between what you're putting in the floodplain and what somebody in their home may be putting in the floodplain. A big difference. So your car might wash down and cause some problems. Wait a minute, that's not like putting what you're putting in there to come down on these people. Yeah. Yeah.
Who here has the ability to move 131,000 cubic yards of soil? Except for MarkWest.
Yeah.
That's the question.
They don't want to move it.
I lived for a dozen years on the floodplain, and I know how it feels to wonder when the next big flood's coming. I lived through the 200-year 85 flood on a floodplain. It came within 3 inches of the bottom of my floor. I know how it feels, and I identify with all these concerns. And I also know that when I went to get a mortgage for my property, I was required to buy flood insurance. Well, yes, but in order to live on a floodplain, you're required to take this kind of action to protect yourself and accept that responsibility rather than building up on the hill. I mean, people like to be near water, and certainly availability of property is limited, so a lot of people build on floodplains. And we're required by the lending institutions, if we're getting a mortgage, to buy flood insurance. Now, I think that we need to recognize what a level playing field is. I mean, these kinds of things have been put in place to protect us. And we make choices, and it's my opinion that if people are playing by prescribed rules, getting all the certification, including if you're buying property on a floodplain, that you're getting flood insurance. Now, if everyone's playing by the rules and nature doesn't comply, the prescriptive action is the floodplain insurance that you bought in order to own your home on floodplain will be the backup plan. I mean, if you want to say, okay, let's get rid of the rules, well, that's a bigger job. I mean, you have to overthrow the federal regulations. And if you want to do that, go for it. But otherwise, it's kind of like spinning wheels and expecting someone else to make up new rules. And I totally understand the nervousness of living on a floodplain. I personally would never want to do it again because it is a grating on your emotional being.
Well, until just recently, we could have a home on the floodplain and get a mortgage without having flood insurance. I've had it for some years, but it was my choice to have that.
Well, I was required 20 years ago to get it.
Well, I wasn't until just recently.
Maybe you were at a different elevation.
Yeah, they changed them.
Yeah.
They sure changed them. Okay, and I've lived there for 32 years. But, so then if we have concerns and say, wait a minute, we're afraid of this, something's going to happen.
But there are folks that could possibly be outside of the floodway, and if this does impact the flooding, they perhaps don't have insurance because they are out of the floodway. This has the potential to possibly flood them when they're outside of the floodway. That's.
And again, I will point you to the licensed professional engineer who demonstrated mathematically that that is not the case.
So if it does happen, let's just say.
Dan, you have any comments on this?
Well, again, I think all of us can relate to the passions that have come forward here. But we still need to look at the issue tonight. And the issue tonight is, do we grant or deny, as Doddridge County, a floodplain permit for 2 additional stockpiles of earth at this time up at MarkWest? Now, since that, they have applied for their master plan to level those stockpiles off and create their final grade, they call it, but that's not what we're here to decide this evening, or to discuss this evening. It's whether or not these 2 additional stockpiles of earth that they have applied for is going to have the effects which people fear they may have. That's the issue tonight.
Well, I'm going to make my decision that I'm not approving any permit tonight. I want more studies done, and I want to take this under board advisement for this certain permit.
I do have a question.
Yes,
He's
ma'am.
saying to me that I elected, or the county, I voted for you to represent me in things like this, Gray and Mrs. Williams. You guys are the ones that represent the Doddridge County citizens. And that's what he said. We trust you to make the right decisions for Doddridge County, and that's what he said.
Okay, thank you. Dan, I have a floodplain permit report, and I'd like to go through them now, and then we can take care of the rest of our business after that.
You have copies?
Maybe these people might want to go home. So I'll read you the pending permits for February. MarkWest Sherwood Gas Processing Plant, permit 13-103 pending. Permit number 14116 Crestwood Marcellus Midstream, pending. Permit number 14-121 EQT Gathering Pipeline, pending. Permit number 14-122 Antero Resources Waterline, pending. Permit number 14-123 MarkWest Liberty Sherwood Gas Processing Plant Master Plan, pending. Permit number 14-128 CNX Gas Company upgrade, pending. Permit number 14-129 EQT Production Company well line, pending. Permit number 14-130 MarkWest Sherwood Sales, pending more information.
That's a pipeline job, that's nothing to do with the facility up there.
Completed permits. Permit number 13-054A, extension of permit 13054 MarkWest Moose property, completed. Permit number 14-114 Cone Gathering Oxford 1 EQT Gas Water Pipeline, completed. Permit number 14-115 Antero Willard Pipeline, completed.
Could we have a copy of that?
Yeah. That concludes all of our business for the meeting tonight, except for our invoices and our budget review. Taking a 5-minute recess. Desperately needed. Right. Can I get out this way? I'll go around the other way. Here, I want to ask you something.
I'm sorry, I had to work over.
That's okay. Do you personally own any interest, or just your wife own it? Any mineral interest?
Well, the property we both own. I can get paid.
April? I have a question. I have a question for you real quick. This is one of our applicants that we interviewed. Him and his wife own 1/6. And he's willing to turn it all to his wife. He'll own none. You think the Ethics Commission is going to let us?
Well, part of what they disagree with Dan, because he has the right to inherit what he's had. Under law, you have a right to inherit what you want, depending on how your wills are.
And I'm glad to see